All right, can y'all hear me now? Mic check, mic check. Big lift, you getting me? All right, cool. Garton, did it load for you? Is it still loading up? I'm suspecting I've got a terrible lag going on. Love it. All right. Seth, did you get in yet? All right, that lets me know what's up there. Now, do we have my Jarl or his young one? Probably not. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. So, Elsa, gott natt. If it's lagging too hard, y'all just hit me up on Messenger, or if y'all have questions for me, just hit me there. That also being said, if you've got Hangouts and you want to be in on this next week, or next week, because I don't want to figure out the logistics while we're live, then we will cover that then. So y'all just let me know. So yeah, welcome to lesson 2. Last week we went over some pretty basic stuff as far as crazy letters that you'll see, and a couple basic greetings. So just as a refresher and so that y'all can hear me say some of this, and bear with me, I'm actually having to write in mirror. So I've got a whiteboard over here, but I'm having to write it reverse, so it may take me a second to write. So our first basic greeting is Helsa. It's a very generic hello. Seth, are you just now hearing me? All right. More common are some of the other ones we went over. Think of them kind of like, if you're familiar with modern German, the idea of Guten Morgen, Guten Tag, Guten Night. It's, those are the basic greetings. You have Hallo and that kind of thing. But these are the ones that most people will use most often. which, again, sorry, I'm having to write in mirror, so it's taking me a minute longer. I'm going to try and figure that out for next week, what's going on there, if I can't fix that. So, Góðan dag, or Góðan morgun. Or morgun, rather than morgan, morgun. And for good evening, it's a little bit different. Góða nótt. Góða nótt. So I have a list here on my computer. I'm actually going to send a file in just a little bit through this chat, where I've actually got easy type codes for a lot of the special letters that you'll see coming up. And I've also got some other stuff that we're going to cover today on there. All right, good. Glad the video feed's keeping up. It's weird. The only time I've ever done a chat like this, I've had somebody talking back at me, so I got to get used to that. All right. So the very last thing we went over at the end of the lesson, I'm not going to try and write this. I'm just going to type it in to the chat, was a very simple sentence. And let's see if I can find it. Yeah, there she is. And the sentence reads, Heilsa mother / kona, góðan dag þig. Now you'll notice, I talked about how thick is a weird word to get across in English. And I, like what is present in that word, is always almost looks like a long E to us in English, but it's not held as long. If that I had an accent mark over it, such as this one that I just put up in chat, it would be thick. You almost exaggerate how long you're holding it. And that's pretty much the rule for any of the long marks or those accents over the vowels. You just hold them a little bit longer. All right. So I'll go over that sentence one more time so you can hear it one more time. It's Heilsa málur / kona, góðan dag þig. Literally translates to hello, man / woman. Good day to you. This form is more or less, the sentence is more or less correct. I don't know how casual it would have actually been in the Viking Age, which is what I'm focusing on. Sorry to you Vendel guys. I don't know if either of y'all are Vendel, but I don't know much about the pronunciation of what they were speaking at the time, which would have been somewhere between Common Germanic and Proto-Norse. So expanding on what we learned last week, a good one to know is how to say goodbye. Now, this is one of the easiest words, or phrases rather, for an English speaker to pick up, because as soon as you see it, you'll recognize it. Farvel. Farvel. So it literally translates as farewell. And pretty much you can get that pronunciation if you just say it like farewell, but with a V instead of a W. So farvel. Alright, so with the basic introductions and knowing how to say goodbye to somebody, it's a good idea to know the next question. And Kjartan, Seth, I know you brought this one up at the very first time we opened the chat. Let's see if I can. Actually, kind of impressing myself of how well I'm writing backwards, but do not judge my handwriting based on this. So, ve ginga there. Ve ginga there. Literally, this translates as "How's it going?" It's a pretty good indication of how are you, in much the same way as, you know, how's it hanging, what's up. It's a fairly casual, so this would be good between two members of like rank. There's not a big formal versus informal gap in Old Norse like there is in modern German, but in my opinion, I would never say this to my Jarl. It seems a little too casual. I haven't looked up the more formal way of saying this yet, but it feels a little too informal for me. Now the response to Hvegingathea follows the same idea in the idea of how is it going? It's going well. So it would be Thot Gengar. Well is vel. Or if it's going poorly, ila. Fix this real quick. I'll show you. So, va gingar there. Vat gingar vel. Or vat ginga ila. And if I'm moving too fast or anything like that, let me know through the chat, guys. A little bit of feedback is always nice. It's weird just kind of talking at my computer. So anything y'all have to say, let me know. Ah, Nikki, did I see you join the group? Welcome in. All right. So before we move much further, all right, is everybody still hanging out? I'm seeing, I think I lost some people on the YouTube channel. All right. I'll go back over it if I need to. So before we get into introductions, which is what I really want to cover tonight, there's a big elephant in the room that we need to cover pronouns. So in order to do that, we need to go over some very basic language stuff. And that is the fact that in Old Norse, as with a lot of other languages outside of English, though in this case English does follow the rule to some extent, there are what are called cases. So I'll do a really simple breakdown, a really simple sentence to explain the cases. And that is, my dog gave a bone to him. All right, we lost Seth. What's going on here? All right. Well, one second, Charles. We'll see if we can get everybody on board again or something. All right, let's see if I can type and talk at the same time. So, all right. Let's see. Where I lost Seth at Farvel. All right. How are we gonna do this? So, Charles, I'm just gonna keep talking to you, and if Nikki gets in, then she can see some of this. All right. So, in the sentence, my dog gave a bone to him, we actually cover all four of the cases that are present in Old Norse. So the first one is the nominative, and it is the subject of the sentence. So in that sentence, the subject would be dog. So dog would be in the nominative case. And actually the first word of that sentence, my, is a genitive pronoun, which is what we're going to be covering as pronouns. Genitive is essentially a fancy way of saying possessive. So the word my, showing possession of the dog, would be in the genitive case. So gave would be the verb. We're not going to get into verbs right now because that's a completely other story. And then so we have my in the genitive, dog in the nominative, gave being the verb, a bone would be the indirect object. If you remember the your old elementary school diagramming of a sentence. And the indirect object takes the dative case. So I'm going to try and get all this made a little bit more clear when I type it as well. And then finally, the last would be him, or to him, would be the accusative case. So let me know that makes sense. I'm going to type up real quick. And let's see. Oh, I've got one more person in the chat room. Who joined me? Let me know. All right. So, you know what? I didn't think about this. Let me see if I can't get another link over to Seth. Let me see what this one does. Sorry, I'm leaving y'all kind of hanging. Trying to do back of house and front of house at the same time is always fun. All right. So let's see. Now, on top of case, which is that the parts of speech for a noun, basically, there are also number, which is not just singular or plural. It's also the difference between first person, second person, and third person, which this is easiest to understand. In pronouns, this is the only place where it really comes in handy. Is first person is me or I. Second person is you, y'all. And then third person is he, she, or it. So we'll go over them group by group. We'll do first person, right mirror. First person, singular, and then I'll try and keep the same table in the same order across all of them. Again, Nikki, I think that's you in the video as well. If you have any questions or anything, hit me up on the Facebook chat. I'm on there still. And if I need to go back over something or back up, please let me know. And don't judge my handwriting today because I'm having to write in reverse, which is always a favorite pastime of mine. All right, so first person singular pronouns. So in the nominative, which is the subject case, is ek. The accusative case, which is the direct object, so some mean, and dative, the indirect object, is mir. Now, when I say that English kind of does the same case, you can definitely see it in the English nominative and genitive especially. Though the accusative and the dative, and the accusative and the dative are the same, which actually is fairly common across Germanic languages. So to put this in context, the nominative first singular in English is I. The accusative and dative are both me, and the genitive is my. So you can kind of get an understanding of, at least in the pronoun case, you can kind of see what's going on as far as the declension goes. Now, a quick note on ek. If you are Danish or Faroese in the late Viking period, just as your personal note to your persona, or if you are Icelandic and in the late Viking period, ek becomes or is more often pronounced as the yeg. So this would be a little bit different, just as one more extra layer of authenticity to your persona, giving it the right, the right accent. Instead of saying ek genga, I walk, you would say yeginga. It's still I walk. So, and I've got all of this on a sheet that I'm going to post up. I'm actually going to go ahead and see if I can't throw this into the chat room. If I can figure out where it did with it. And then we're going to go into doing the plurals as well. So So for the plural, which would be we, us, we. The nominative case, I'm going to see if I can't write and talk at the same time. Maybe not, because I have to be too far forward. The nominative case is ver. The accusative and the dative are both os, and the genitive is thou. So in English, the English actually reflects the Old Norse fairly closely because of the way our system works. It's we, us, our, us. So, like I was saying earlier, the accusative and the dative are often in English the same word. In this case, and I believe in most of the plurals, this is the truth. Yeah, I only see a couple breaks to that rule looking at my notes. All right, so y'all have any questions on first person pronouns there? All right, I'll move on to second person. By the end of this, I'm going to be a champ at writing in mirror. So again, we're going to go one set of numbers at a time. And in the same pattern, the nominative, accusative, genitive, dative. And there is no real reason or rhyme to why I'm going in that order, with the exception of that's just kind of the common thing. If you look at, I go off of Cleesby Vigfussen's Old Icelandic Dictionary as my primary source, and they kind of set the bar for how all Old Norse is studied, written about, anything. And this is their system, going in that order, but it doesn't really matter. So yeah, the second person forms in English are a little bit different, because you saw in the first person forms, the English follows it pretty well. As far as the actual translations, you see that there's actually a case in English. Second person, not as much, just because we don't have a different form for you. Now, in second person singular, the nominative is th, accusative thick. We've seen this before. Excuse me, thick. We've seen this before with our sample sentence from last week. The genitive is thine. You can compare that to the Old and Middle English, and even into the modern English, thine. It's a direct cognate. And the dative is thea. Again, the R's are trilled or rolled in every position. So that's something to keep in mind when you are pronouncing certain words. A popular one that I hear a lot is like Ragnarok. And in modern Icelandic or in the English version of that, that is how we say it, is Ragnarok. However, in the Old Norse, you would have something closer to Ragnarok. As Southerners, we are at an advantage here when it comes to second person plural. The majority of the country does not have a second person plural in their everyday vernacular. They'll substitute something along the lines of you guys or something along those lines, or just keep it as you. We have y'all. I am a big proponent, even in my other linguistics works, I am a big proponent of y'all being part of the English language because it fills that hole of a second person plural, which English got rid of mostly due to the French. That's a completely different story, though, and I am not enough of an expert in Old English to be working with that. So, second person plural also has a lot of fun letters. So, in the nominative, you have there, meaning y'all. Accusative, this is a funky kind of letter. It's somewhere between an I and an U. It's almost as if you're trying to say I, like a short I, but you're rounding your mouth. So it's ither. Again, it's ither. Which means y'all in the accusative and in the dative. And then the genitive is ivar, y'alls. So literally the possessive of y'all. So yither. You'll see that first initial Y in a handful of important mythological words, such as Yggdrasil, the world tree, or Yama, which is the first of the frost giants. Now going into we're about to move into third person. So if y'all have any questions on that, on second person, please feel free to pass them over real quick while I start getting the board ready for third. Now, third person gets more complicated, which is perfect because third person pronouns are very important. They're the ones you see the most when you come to studying the lore. Obviously, you use all of them a lot, but third persons get used probably more than anything else. But what makes them more complicated is the fact that you introduce gender into these. We kind of went over gender a little bit last week, and the fact that a lot of languages have some form of gender inflection on their nouns. So you have 3 genders in Old Norse, and in most Germanic languages, you have a masculine, a feminine, and a neuter. It's really easy to explain with pronouns because everyone understands that there is a difference between he, she, and it. So that's so that's actually a remnant from Old English when it still had some gendered speech. But like I said last week, that is not a reflection on the actual word itself or the object of that word for the most part. So things like what did I use? I said I don't know. Hound is always masculine, but I believe cat is feminine. Or the fact that arm is masculine, but but sleeve is feminine. So that kind of shows you that it's not necessarily a comment on the actual gender of, or the perceived gender of a certain thing, but rather it is just a way of grouping the words so that you can talk about them better. Sorry, this one's taking me a bit longer because it is a little bit longer to write out. Something I did want to point out when it comes to pronunciation, and I am not an expert on reconstructed pronunciation. I will leave that up to Dr. Crawford, whose videos I linked in the last conversation. If you want help finding those, I will get them to you. But there is definitely a difference between the short ah and the long ah. And then there's the ash letter, which looks like the AE combined together, which is ah, or excuse me, which is ah. That sound change happened fairly early on. I mentioned earlier that with most of the vowels, if it's got an accent on it, it just holds a little bit longer. A is that one exception. And you'll see why I brought that up here in just a second. So, third person singular. And we're going to go masculine, feminine, neuter. Nominative, han, hon, that. Literally translates as he, she, it. Accusative. Right? Yeah. So accusative is han, hana, that. So him, her, it. Genitive, hans, hennar, þess. So his, her, hers, excuse me, his, hers, and its. And then the dative is hanum, henny, and thvi. Him, her, it. And again, I've got that sheet up there which has all of this much nicer typed up. So the plurals are a lot easier. If you're looking at that sheet, you'll see that the genitive and the dative for all three genders are the same, which is nice because it's a lot easier to recognize that form when you get to actually looking at lore or reading over it. It's definitely nice to go ahead and go, oh, I recognize that one because I know that it's an accusative or it's a genitive plural pronoun. Let me look back in the sentence and see what it's talking about, as opposed to having to go, all right, well, that gender doesn't match up with that, or does it? So you'll notice that some of these words that come up are cognate or sound a lot like some old English words that we had, particularly, for instance, the second genitive singular, thine, theme in Old Norse. And in this case, we'll have one that is thou. That's no accident. That's no happenstance. The English, or our English language, is definitely attributed partially to Old Norse from under the rule of the Danelaw. So during that period, a lot of Old Norse did come into English. So you'll recognize some of these words. All right, so third person, plural, masculine, feminine, and neuter. Nominative, þeir, and this is pronounced as an A, like a long A. So they, thar, thou. So them, masculine, them, feminine, them, neuter. Accusative, tha, fair, thou. And then the genitive for all three genders is theira, theira, and the dative is thame. So, as a note, the nominative third person plural, actually, this is also true for the accusative, you will see the neuter more often than either of the others. So a masculine plural would refer to a group of only males, or a feminine plural the same, is only females. A neuter would be used for if you have a group of mixed gender. Wow, it is 5 till 9 already, and I did not get introductions like I wanted to. But I can go over it really quick without losing too much. That is, if your brain's not exploding. If it is, please step back from your computer and let me know. I'll just go over one form of this. I had originally planned on going over all of them. But the one you'll probably use most is just simply saying, I am, or my name is. So, for instance, my personification's name is Skeggy, which means shaggy or islander. So if I were to introduce myself after the pleasantries of Hail Sub, Golden Dog, I would say, Ik heiti Skeggy. Or if I were a little bit later in the period, towards the end of the Viking Age, I would say Yig heiti, because I'm a Dane, Spear Dane. But for the purposes of the majority of us, it would simply be Ek heiti your name. So, Charles, since I know you're still online, I don't know about anybody else is still watching. I might still have Nikki. Your introduction would be Ek heiti Wiglaf. And then you would follow it up with, if you don't know that person's name, the pleasant thing to do would be to ask. And you will learn that a lot of the question words, what, where, why, do sound a lot like English. But a little bit as if it was old school English, and you have What heter du? Literally translates as what are you called? So what heter du? So for a pretty basic sample sentence on that, which is the one that I have onto the bottom of that worksheet, which I just realized I don't have the cheat codes for typing on, so I will get that on there and reload it. Hälsomal, góðan dag þig. Ek heiti Karl. Vad heter du? Det gangar þér. Das gengur vel. Farväl. So that translates as, hello man, good day to you. I am called Carl. What are you called? Or my name is Carl. What is your name? How's it going? It's going well. Farewell or goodbye. So again, just to read over that one more time, a little bit slower. Hälsomal, góðan dag þig. Ek heiti Karl. Vad heter du? Det gengur þér. Det gengur vel. Farväl. So yeah, that's all the time that we have set aside for today, and all the time I really care to take, especially, hopefully things will go a little bit easier once we get some of the problems and bugs worked out later on. I'm going to figure out a better way to get y'all involved, whether that's through maybe stealing one of you into Hangouts or something like that to talk back with me. But yeah, we'll get all that worked out. I hope you learned something for today, and I don't know, had fun staring at my awkward face. Again, if you have any questions, all of you know how to find me on Facebook. Some of you even have my phone number. So let me know if you have questions, and let me know what we should talk about next week, so I'm not just going to throw something together. All right, so, gott natt. Hej.